Hi, my name is Margaret Baird. Most people call me Meg, and I am a counselor for BOCES Employee Assistance Program. I am also a certified alcohol and substance abuse counselor. Today, I'd like to talk to you about drinking during difficult times. How much alcohol is too much? Before we talk about alcohol use or misuse, we should discuss stress. Stress is a normal reaction to difficult situations and often contributes towards alcohol and drug misuse or abuse. So, what is stress? It's your body's way of responding to perceived danger, whether real or imagined. It is the flight or fight response. And stress can have some serious consequences for both your physical and mental health. I have listed here some common symptoms of stress, such as headache, muscle tension or pain, fatigue, change in sex drive, stomach issues, sleep issues, anxiety, restlessness, feeling overwhelmed, irritability or anger, sadness or depression, tobacco use. I don't know if you've noticed, but many smokers have started chain smoking or smoking much more than usual. Overeating or undereating, angry outbursts, an inability to concentrate or focus, social withdrawal or isolating, exercising less often, and drug or alcohol misuse. So, there are many different ways to cope with stress. Some of those are positive, some of those are negative, and we're going to discuss both. So, some positive ways to cope with stress are talking with friends, listening to music, eating healthy foods, exercising, meditating, sleeping, take a nap, drinking tea, especially herbal tea, breathing, being grateful. I know people who make gratitude lists to focus on what they're grateful for in their lives. And my favorite, laughing. Humor is very important to cope with stress, and it certainly is a fun way to cope with stress. Some negative ways to cope with stress are isolating, escaping into the internet or TV, consuming sugar and carbs, becoming aggressive or resentful, negative self-talk. Negative self-talk can be things like, I hate myself, things are never going to get better, I can't believe I will never find a job again, those kinds of things. Also, not sleeping, drinking alcohol and drinking alcohol to excess, smoking and vaping, and using other substances. So basically, the negative ways hurt you, the positive ways help you. Now, we can also use humor. Like I said, humor can be a positive way to cope with stress, but I've heard it said that many a truth is spoken in jest. So some of the things that we might find funny, we also have to question, like, why is that funny? So here are some things that I found that are very common currently about alcohol, and you decide whether or not they're funny. So according to Ina Garten, it's always cocktail hour during a crisis. So, and she has a giant Cosmo. Is that funny? Also, you know what goes great with coronavirus? Lyme disease. And finally, Saturday Night Live did a skit, Let Kids Drink. And granted, it was a parody, but is it really funny to see little kids drinking? I'll let you decide. Now, how much alcohol is too much? It's a question everybody wants to know, right? So, many adults enjoy a beer, cocktail, or glass of wine on a regular basis. In general, most people can drink safely and never have an issue. So, how much is too much? According to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, or the NIAAA, those who are at low risk for developing an alcohol use disorder do not exceed the following guidelines. Men, 4 or fewer standard drinks on any single day, and no more than 14 standard drinks per week. Women, 3 or fewer standard drinks on any single day, and no more than 7 standard drinks per week. So basically, if you're a man and you drink, let's say, 4 beers a day, 5 days a week, right? That's 20 beers. 4 times 5 is 20. It's 20 beers. So you are exceeding the 14 standard drinks per week. Or let's say you drink a 6-pack on the weekends. So 6 times 3, right, would be 18. You're still exceeding the standard drinks on any single day, and no more than 14 in a week. For women, if you think about it, if you had 2 glasses of wine every day with dinner, you would still exceed that 7 standard drinks per week. And I'm not saying it is a problem, I'm saying it could be a problem. But what exactly is a standard drink? A standard drink is either a 12 ounces of regular beer, right? Not a tall boy, but 12 ounces. A tall boy is 24 ounces. Or 5 ounces of table wine, which is about half a glass. Or 1.5 ounces of distilled spirits. So if you're going to make a cocktail, 1 shot in your cocktail, not 2 shots. And so when you're drinking, if you think, oh, I only had 1 glass of wine, how big is that glass of wine? It's something to think about. So now we have some questions for you to ask yourself, and these questions are part of the CAGE questionnaire, which was developed by the American Psychiatric Association, also known as the APA. 1, have you ever felt you needed to cut down on your drinking? Have people annoyed you by criticizing your drinking? Has your spouse said to you, honey, I really think you need to cut back on your drinking? Or have your friends said anything about, we really think you're going a little overboard? And how do you feel about that when they question you? Have you ever felt guilty about drinking? Do you ever wake up the next morning and say, oh my goodness, what did I do? I can't believe I did that last night. And finally, have you ever felt you needed a drink the first thing in the morning? It's called an eye opener, or the hair of the dog that bit you. So have you ever needed a drink first thing in the morning to steady your nerves or to get rid of a hangover? Now, if you answer yes to 2 or more of these questions, then it's something you really need to take a look at and maybe figure out, that possibly you should talk to someone. So what is substance use? The term substance use refers to the use of chemicals and includes substances such as alcohol, nicotine, cannabis or marijuana, weed, pot, illegal drugs, prescription drugs such as painkillers or opiates, Xanax, Klonopin, also known as benzodiazepines, amphetamines like Adderall or Ritalin, used for ADHD. Inhalants are things like glue, dust off, which you use to clean electronics, that sort of thing. And solvents are things like paint thinner. So a substance use problem occurs when using alcohol or other drugs causes harm to you or to others. I always like to say, it doesn't really matter if you drink a glass of wine or a gallon of vodka. Really what matters is it causing harm to you or is it causing harm to your relationships with other people? And if the answer is yes, then it looks like you might have an issue. Substance use problems. You can have a substance use issue and not be an addict, but they can certainly lead to substance use disorders or addiction. So addiction or severe substance use disorder is primary. It's a complex disease which affects both your body and your brain and your mind. It's chronic. It does not get any better. If you are an addict, you will always be an addict. If you are an alcoholic, you will always be an alcoholic. That doesn't change. It's very similar to something like diabetes. Once you get diabetes, you're going to have diabetes. You can't get rid of it. And it's biopsychosocial. It's called a biopsychosocial disease because it not only negatively affects your body, but also your mental health and your relationships with other people. Now, if you think you or a loved one might have a problem with alcohol or substance use, what should you do next? In an emergency, call 911 or go to the nearest hospital emergency room or emergency department. Or you can call the BOCES EAP, Employee Assistance Program. Our phone number is 631-289-0480. And we can offer you a confidential assessment to see if you do have a problem and possibly refer you to treatment. So there are different treatment options for alcoholism and substance abuse, and we're going to review those. First, we have detox. Detox or detoxification refers to the process of removing toxins from the body. In the case of substance use, if someone says, I'm going to detox or I went to detox, it usually refers to they went to a place where they had medical supervision, where the patient is safe and they can help comfortably clear whatever substance is in their body from them and treat the acute withdrawal symptoms and also take care of any medical issues that may arise when they're detoxing. In the case of alcoholism, withdrawal from alcohol can sometimes cause seizures, so it's helpful, not only helpful, it can be life-saving to have a medical supervised detox from alcohol. In residential treatment is usually a long-term treatment, and basically the person goes for 90 days to 6 months or more, and they're put into a very much a home-like environment, and that removes them from perhaps the environment that they were living in where they are triggered all the time or where relapse is likely, and they're put into an environment that's very safe, where there's structure and they can learn to live without whatever substances that they are using. Inpatient treatment is usually 2 weeks to 28 days average. Inpatient treatment is more of, unlike residential treatment, inpatient is more of a hospital or institutional kind of setting where clients would get counseling and also learn about the disease of addiction. And counseling usually is comprised of group counseling, individual counseling, and they will also do medical supervision, and if necessary, the patient would be prescribed medication to help them. Then we have outpatient services. With outpatient services, there's a couple of different types. We have intensive outpatient services, which are 3 hours a day, 3 to 5 days a week. And that's for people that really need the extra support so they don't relapse into addiction or start drinking again. And also people that have other issues or problems that they need extra help with. They will sometimes find themselves in intensive outpatient services. Clinic groups are usually 1 hour a day, 3 to 5 days a week, and then usually you get stepped down eventually to 1 day a week, and then once a month, and so forth, depending on what your progress is in treatment. Today, most, if not all, outpatients are doing telehealth or telecounseling. So they are still seeing clients, but they're seeing them in their home using online resources to engage with clients. And they are doing both group counseling and individual counseling using telehealth. Individual counseling is what it is. It says what it is. It's the counselor and the individual working together to make progress in promoting change in one's life. Most counselors will refer clients or patients to self-help groups in addition to treatment. So self-help groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anon for family members of alcoholics or friends, Nar-Anon also for family members or friends of people who use narcotics. Families Anonymous is for people who have family members with behavioral and or substance use issues. And Smart Recovery is a science-based format or science-based group that works with individuals in recovery who maybe don't want to engage so much with their spiritual side but want more science-based recovery. As far as I know, all these groups are holding virtual meetings right now. It's the spring of 2020. We're having a pandemic, so there are very few in-person meetings, especially in New York State. Hopefully that will change soon, but for now, that's what we're doing. What exactly are 12-step groups? 12-step groups such as Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anon, Nar-Anon. What does that mean, a 12-step group? So taken directly from their literature, a 12-step group is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from whatever issue it is that they're suffering from. And most 12-step groups have what they call beginners meetings. A beginners meeting is a meeting that someone can go to who is unfamiliar with the 12 steps, and they want to learn how to live and be engaged in their recovery. They want to learn how to live without substances and engage in their recovery. Or if it's a family group, they want to learn how to detach from the person that helps them qualify, from their family member who's using substances. So there are certain suggestions that they make at beginners meetings, and here are just a few of them. The first is postpone the drink or the substance, and they call that the 24-hour plan. So when you're in early recovery and you're like, how do we not use substances? How do I not pick up? The question is the answer is to postpone it for an hour, and then have an hour turn into 2 hours, and 2 hours turn into 4, and so on until you actually put together 24 hours. And then once you have 24 hours, you just do, again, the same thing that you did yesterday. Do today what you did yesterday, and you will probably stay clean and sober for another 24 hours. Secondly is halt. Never get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And across the board, that works with everyone. So being hungry, angry, lonely, or tired puts our bodies under stress and our minds under stress. And of course, stress, when we're used to doing things negatively, stress, instead of dealing negatively with stress, we want to deal positively with it. Sponsorship and sober support. A sponsor is just someone in the group who's there to help guide the newcomer or beginner in the process of engaging in their recovery. And sober support are the other people that you might meet at the group who are there basically to support you. Most 12-step meetings or groups will suggest that the newcomer get a medical checkup. Many people don't take care of themselves, and so a medical checkup, I always recommend a medical checkup for my clients as well, can be very beneficial to find out if there's any medical things that need to be addressed. Read the literature. Many of these groups have literature. Often the literature is free. Sometimes they have books that you can purchase very inexpensively. And much of the program is written in the literature. So if you want to understand about the 12 steps, it helps to read the literature. Prayer. 12-step groups, unlike Smart Recovery, 12-step groups promote prayer in whatever form the newcomer or new member prefers. So while they don't necessarily tell you to believe in God, because they tell you can have whatever kind of God you want in your life, or whatever you conceive God to be is fine. they do suggest that prayer and meditation can be very helpful. Another thing you'll often hear at beginners meetings is to change your routines. So, and I also suggest that to my clients as well. In order to break the behaviors, in order to change your behavior, sometimes you have to do something else. Move a muscle, change a thought. That's really what that means. If I want to exercise every day, I don't need to go home and sit on the couch when I get home from work, right? I should just change my routine and go home and exercise. So changing your routines to break your old negative patterns. Getting a home group and a commitment. A home group is a group where you attend regularly, or you get to know people in that group, and you get to be friends with that group and develop relationships. And a commitment is just doing something for the group, making a commitment that you're going to show up and you're going to help out. And a commitment can be anything from picking up chairs, cleaning up, helping to set up the meeting, making coffee, all those things. Of course, now all the groups are virtual, so it's a little harder to get a commitment, but you can certainly get a home group and make connections with people. One day at a time is a concept that across the board works for everybody. One day at a time refers to keeping things in the moment, being in the present. When we think about the past, we tend to perhaps if we have a lot of guilt and shame going on in our lives, when we think about the past, we think about the guilt and the shame. And then when we think about the future, we may tend to worry and get anxious about what's going to happen, especially in early recovery, someone who's in early recovery or someone who's struggling. So if you live in the present, you're fine. Hopefully you're fine. There's nothing going on, so you just live one day at a time, just for today. So all you need to focus on is today. Today, not picking up, not using. And lastly, 12-step groups, of course, they're going to teach the new person about what the 12 steps are. Simplified, I've heard it called a prescription for living, and I believe most people who are engaged in 12-step recovery groups tend to be pretty happy about what they learn in these groups. Here are some additional resources. The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, which is part of the National Institute of Health. New York State Office of Addiction Services and Support, also known as OASIS. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services, that's also a government agency. A lot of helpful information on their website. Alcoholics Anonymous World Services, or AA.org, and the Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic website has a great deal of information on both physical and mental health issues, so I highly recommend that as well. And again, if you need any help whatsoever, please call BOCES Employee Assistance Program. We're here to help you. Thank you.